clicked a button, and apparently we're live. But I'm going to wait for the cue from the chat room so I know that we actually are live. And we can give this show a go. Big thumbs up from the chat room. Let us know if our audio is okay. Justin, can you say a few words?
A few words. Oh, gosh. Yeah. I have a cold, so it's going to sound distorted no matter what.
We've got the best audio. Sound check, sound check. You don't hear us? It says we're live.
1, 2, 3,
You
4.
say we're live. Hot Rod doesn't see or hear. Kevin says sounds good. Eric says sounds good.
Nice. Oh,
Head cold Justin sounds okay, says Ed. There we
perfect.
go.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, everybody, let us start the show in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 741, recorded on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2019. Detecting signals. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight I would love to tell you that we're going to fill your heads with humans, apes, and tardigrades. But first,
disclaimer. All over the world, people worry. What are they worrying about today? Well, that all depends on which person is doing the worrying, where they are in the world, in their life, in their day. Many worries may seem distinct, as if an individual person's specific worry might make them the only human being worrying about such things, but it is rarely true. There are enough people in the world worrying about things that despite how it seems, no one worrier is ever alone in what worries them, though there may be only one person on the planet who's currently worried about being impeached. The number of people worrying about global warming is rising to such numbers that there is coming next a global recognition that none of us are alone in this fight. There is a strength in numbers that can cast worry aside and replace it with action. And action is the enemy of worry. But action alone is not enough. What the world needs is action. And This Week in Science, coming up next.
and in a minute, because my music isn't starting.
I'll just pretend I'm frozen.
You're frozen. You're frozen. We're all frozen. Everyone, freeze. What the world needs now.
It's not a technical issue. Your computer's just not is buffering.
So much TWIS. We got science from the Arctic for all of this. Okay, here we go.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We are back again. Woohoo! And we have Blair on the line from the Tundra with a special guest. So more on... hello. More on that in a minute. Tonight on the show, we've got news about, well, we're going to talk about some polar bears, I believe. I've got some meat for you and some asteroids and maybe some baby mussels. Baby mussels are good. Yeah. Justin, what do you have?
I've got Joe Schmo versus the volcano, the secret life of tardigrades, skin-shedding bacteria, and seagrass.
And seagrass. And Blair, what do you have for us? Where are you? What is going on?
Goodness. We are in the subarctic, just outside of Churchill now, in the tundra.
Nice.
In the tundra. That's
And-
right.
and
So
you're
we're
in-
Broadcasting live from a tundra buggy.
A tundra buggy, that's
describe
what
it Yeah, I like to describe it like a huge white school bus, but on like monster truck tires.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always consider them to be if what it would look like if tardigrades roamed the earth.
But they do.
Well, I mean, in a larger, like in a megafauna.
okay.
So,
Sure.
If tardigrades were megafauna,
Yeah.
they would
they'd
have
look like Arctic buggies.
with school bus tires. Okie dokie. Everyone, if you have not yet subscribed to the TWIS podcast, why haven't you? You can find us all places podcasts are found. Look for This Week in Science. You can also find us on YouTube and on Facebook. Or you can just visit twis.org. You can find out all sorts of information about the show notes, and about our 2020 TWIS Blair's Animal Corner calendar. Yeah, that's available for pre-order right now. All right, but now it's time for us to jump into the show and talk. And because these ladies in the subarctic have a curfew, they're they're sharing a bus van with a lot of people, or a train. I'm really confused about the setup. Blair, could you please introduce our guest this evening?
Absolutely. So I am joined by Marisa Kraus from Polar Bears International.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Marisa.
and-
All right.
And so we'll share out on social media and stuff like that. You can see us in the Tundra Buggy here. But we are here doing this crazy thing. So we're going to try to put words to it to kind of explain our experience. So we are here as part of the Climate Alliance. Do you want to explain kind of what the history of that is? And
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for Polar Bears International, and we're the world's only polar bear conservation organization working for wild polar bears. And we know that zoos and aquariums play a really important, and so we have a special program that we tailor just to Arctic ambassador centers, and that's a network of zoos and aquariums consisting of about across the U.S., Canada, and Europe. And through that program, we work with educators, we work with animal care staff, we work with PR and social media staff, and one of the primary goals being teaching institutions and staff how to effectively communicate about climate change and solutions that scale the problem.
right. And so I'm here not only because the San Francisco Zoo and Gardens, my home institution, is an Arctic Ambassador Center, but also because I'm here to help facilitate some NOKI programming. So loyal listeners will recognize that name. That's the National Network for Ocean and Climate Change Interpretation. And we use social science to figure out the best way to have hopeful, solutions-focused conversations about climate change. So based on what Marisa just said and what I just said, you see a lot of overlap there. And so these two organizations have really found a way to work together to combine what was a leadership camp for NOKI to kind of find leaders in climate change communication across the US, and this climate alliance program where we're trying to find leaders in polar bear conservation conversation. And so it's all kind of overlapping in one. And so I got the amazing honor to be able to come out and help with some of those activities. So right now, we've already had this super packed week. We went dog sledding yesterday. We got to hear from a local trapper about kind of what life in the subarctic is like for all types of people. And then we also got to go out looking for polar bears, and we were very lucky, and we saw one
First day.
Wow.
5 minutes from the airport. We saw this polar bear as we were driving away from the airport, just kind of bound over some rocks and jump right into the waves of Hudson Bay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And while we haven't seen a polar bear today, we've been able to encounter a lot of the other things that make this area of the world so unique and special. We saw a pod of beluga whales.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the aurora borealis last 2 nights ago.
I'm so jealous.
Well, and just a few minutes ago, we had an Arctic hare right outside our Tundra Buggy.
Yeah. And my personal highlight so far has been the ptarmigans, which I didn't know existed, but they're like these Arctic chickens, and they are amazing. They're kind of snub nosed. They look a little bit like a grouse, and they have like bloomers. They have feathers on their legs. They're just amazing.
Wow.
Birds with bloomers.
Yeah.
Makes them fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. So how much longer are you traveling around, and what other activities are planned?
Yeah.
Well, we'll be here. So our journey, starts in the gateway in the north. We started on Sunday in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and then we traveled north to Churchill, Manitoba, which you can only access via plane and rail. And we spent 2 days experiencing the town of Churchill and what makes that community so special. And then we're going to spend the next 2 days out on the Tundra in Frontiers North Adventures Tundra Buggy Lodge. And we'll be roving around looking for bears for the next 2 days. And then Friday we head south.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And meanwhile, we'll be using the downtime to talk about climate change communication and how we can work together. I think it's an amazing opportunity to talk to people from all over North America and figure out how we actually have a lot of things in common, and we have a lot of common goals, and how we can work together and share what we have with each other to help with that.
Absolutely. We had classroom time for the past 2 days, and then we mixed that in with some informal interpretation from our guides from Parks Canada and Manitoba Department of Sustainable Development. And then we also spend time, which I think is equally important, just building relationships, and building that community and that sense of trust that we really need to move forward as science communicators.
In terms of communicating, I'd love to have you communicate to our audience what you're seeing in the subarctic right now. I mean, this year it's been really warm, and I'd love to know how that affects the environment that you're in right now, and also the polar bears, and how it may affect your polar bear sighting expeditions.
Absolutely. Well, as we did see a polar bear previously, I can speak to the trends. As we see less sea ice, and so this population of polar bears lives in what we call the seasonal sea ice ecoregion. So that's a region of the subarctic where the sea ice forms in the fall and then retreats in the spring. And what we're seeing over a period of time is that sea ice is available 6 weeks on average, less time that they have to hunt. So as polar bears have less time to hunt, they have less access to sea ice, less time to hunt those seals that they really need to build that body condition to reproduce and maintain a healthy population.
Yeah, because it's the seals they have to cross across the frozen ice that forms over the sea there, right? To get out to where the seals are.
Absolutely. So polar bears are dependent on sea ice to catch seals. Polar bears are great swimmers, but they're not as fast as seals, right? So they need that surface of the frozen ocean as a platform to hunt seals, as do many species across the circumpolar north that depend on Arctic sea ice, like ringed seal and beluga whales that we saw here in the Hudson Bay as well.
That's amazing. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but is there anything else that either of you, both of you, would like to add about the trip, about Polar Bears International, about anything that you're doing right now?
Yeah, well, I can say that I'd just like to thank Blair here. We're thrilled to be able to work with Blair. We just started working with the San Francisco Zoo about a year ago as an Arctic Ambassador Center. We're thrilled to be working with her with the National Network for Ocean and Climate Change Interpretation. We're about building relationships and strengthening partnerships to achieve stronger conservation goals. And I believe that we can only do that if we work together. So thanks, Blair.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you for letting us share our story.
And I would say go to polarbearsinternational.org, right? Absolutely. And you can find all of the 48 Arctic Ambassador Centers listed there. And if you live near one, go to that zoo or aquarium, talk to the polar bear keepers, talk to the interpreters there. They can communicate what we've been doing here, what's going on in the Arctic as well. And they can give you tools for what you can do at home as a community to help with Arctic ecosystems and ecosystems at home who are impacted by climate change.
Yeah, your home ecosystem may not be ideal for polar bears, but you can do things that can help the polar bears potentially.
Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
affected. by change.
Everybody's
Us at
affected.
home and the Arctic ecosystem. So we can all benefit from a reduction in the burning of fossil fuels, and the best way to do that is to come together as a community. So your Arctic Ambassador Centers are a great way to start that conversation. Or if you don't have one nearby, just your local zoo, aquarium, science center, or follow me on Twitter, or follow any of those organizations on Twitter as well.
Cool. What's your Twitter handle?
We're at Polar Bears.
Got in there early.
Yeah.
And if you're
That's a good one.
I'd like to add one more, if I may, if you don't want, if I can. So if you're interested in hearing more from our polar bear scientists and our team live on the Tundra, we have a Tundra Connections program in which we have a mobile broadcast studio aboard a Tundra buggy. And we have live cams broadcasting polar bears into classrooms around the world. And you can see that schedule on our website and tune in and follow us live.
Follow the polar bears. I love it. From the tardigrade buggy. I'll never think of them the same again.
Yeah, I think we're going to tell everyone about that tomorrow. I think they're all going to look at us cocked up.
You're in the belly of a tardigrade.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much for making the effort to join us tonight. It is really special to hear from you from, your adventurous place that so few people really have been, and to share your experiences and to share them. So Blair, thank you for making this happen. Marisa, thank you for joining us, for working with Blair to come on the show tonight. So absolutely appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both. But before you go, one quick technical question from the audience that also I have. How are we hearing you? Is Wi-Fi and internet now everywhere, or are you going through satellite?
I brought about 3,000 feet of Ethernet cable. Yeah, it's Wi-Fi. We have Wi-Fi out here.
We have Wi-Fi. Our team's aboard. This is pre-season for us, so our outreach and fall season hasn't started. So our team is at work strengthening those connections, and right now we're using a small chunk of it. It's my technical definition.
So,
yeah,
but
this is the Wi-Fi that they use to do their Tundra connections. So in order for them to be able to talk live with kids in a classroom in Michigan or wherever, they need some really good Wi-Fi. So yeah.
So is it just Wi-Fi stations that are relaying to each other across an area, or is it somebody must have laid cable down somewhere at some point, or is it satellite? I'm like,
as
microwave?
a program manager of an education program and outreach, I sadly say I don't have the answer for you on that, but could find it for you.
Okay.
Tell you what, I'll tweet at TWIS Science if I find out tomorrow.
Perfect.
That is a good question.
Yeah. How does it work out there in the tundra? We would like to know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we don't want to keep you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that we can get either you or someone from Polar Bears International back on TWIS again sometime in the future. It would be great to hear more about the polar bears.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great show, guys. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful remainder of your trip. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. And that was Blair Bazdarich coming to us live from the subarctic. Yeah, the North Pole. Not quite the North Pole.
The South North Pole. Is that what it's called?
She had a picture that she sent earlier to her social media channels. There's no snow anywhere. It just looks like brown tundra, but there's no snow. I'm like, why is there no snow? There should be snow, but no, this is after summer. It's all melted. Everything melted. It's all melted. But we can jump now into some fun science news. This is This Week in Science. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready. Well, I'm going to throw some fun at you first.
Okay.
I love to bring announcement of scientific prizes to the show, and as the Nobels are going to be awarded within the next week, I only thought it appropriate that we needed to bring up the IgNobels.
Oh, is it IgNobel time? This is like one of my favorite times of the year.
It is. The Ig Nobels were awarded a couple of weeks ago, September 12th, 2019 at Harvard's Sanders Theater. And let me tell you the winners. All right. The Medicine Prize goes to Italy, the Netherlands, Silvano Gallus for collecting evidence that pizza might protect against illness and death if the pizza is made and eaten in Italy. There are a series of articles entitled, Does Pizza Protect Against Cancer? Pizza and Risk of Acute Myocardial Infarction, Pizza Consumption, and the Risk of Breast, Ovarian, and Prostate Cancer. Congratulations, Silvano.
So, but it only works on people with a certain genetic pool. Is this right?
It doesn't say that. It just says the pizza has to be made and eaten in Italy.
Yeah, I know that's what they say. Okay, yeah. Ig.
Definitely an egg. The Medical Education Prize goes to Karen Pryor and Teresa McKeon for using a simple animal training technique called clicker training. Blair would be familiar with this. To train surgeons how to perform orthopedic surgery.
What?
Click, 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 click. They used clicker training to teach surgeons where and how to cut, I guess. The article's called, Is Teaching Simple Surgical Skills Using an Operant Learning Program More Effective Than Teaching by Demonstration? Well, I don't know if it's more effective, but I guess it worked. Biology Prize goes to Lingjun Kong, Herbert Kripaz, Agnieszka Goreshka, Alexandra Urbanek, Rainier Dumk, and Tomasz Pantarek for discovering that dead magnetized cockroaches behave differently than living magnetized cockroaches.
Egg. I mean, I don't know that you needed to magnetize them.
They were studying in vivo biomagnetic the study is in vivo biomagnetic characterization of the American cockroach. So I guess they had to see how the magnets worked when they were alive
Because once
versus
dead,
dead.
the circuitry is not connecting inside. I don't know. I'm actually kind of interested in this bizarre study.
You could find it. It's published in Scientific Reports. It was a decent study, yeah. Anatomy Prize goes to Roger Musset and Buras Bengudifa for measuring.
You said that perfectly.
Thank you. This one's good. For measuring scrotal temperature asymmetry in naked and clothed postmen in France.
Wait, you're going to have to say that again. I got that it's temperature of scrotums of French postmen?
Asymmetry. So the difference in the temperature between the two sides in whether you're naked or clothed, but only for postmen, people who deliver the post.
Well, they do a lot of walking. I suppose there may be a temperature differential.
Yeah, the paper's entitled Thermal Asymmetry of the Human Scrotum. The Chemistry Prize goes to Japan for estimating the total saliva volume produced per day by a typical 5-year-old child.
Okay, that cannot be helpful. It may be somewhere. There's
helpful.
Something. It's more data.
It's more
How
data.
do you get 5-year-old to do anything consistently, even spit as much as they can? Like I don't
know, but you'd have to ask the adult sons who attended the ceremony with the researcher, who were some of the subjects of the study when they were children 35 years ago. You could ask them. They may remember. Engineering goes to Iman Farabakash for inventing a diaper-changing machine for use on human infants.
Hey, repeat this?
A diaper-changing machine for use on human infants.
Oh, no, stop. Stop.
I
Robots
can't
will not change baby diapers. This is not going to be
Well,
no.
he made one, okay? The Economics Prize goes to researchers from Turkey, the Netherlands, and Germany for testing which country's paper money is best at transmitting dangerous bacteria.
So that's interesting.
It is
Who's
interesting.
got the most
Porous, I guess, or supportive. Whose money has the most bacterially supportive?
Yeah.
Niche?
What money is the best medium for
What
bacterial
money?
growth?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Which one's the best? The
Does
piece.
it say who the winner is?
Who the winner was for that
I
one?
want to know. See these IgNobel prize, like they're like really like that's really interesting.
It
Is there a
is.
country that should be washing their hands more than any other?
we have to read the paper to figure it out. The Peace Prize goes to UK, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, and the USA for trying to measure the pleasurability of scratching an itch. How good does it really feel to scratch an itch?
It's okay, but it's nowhere near Q-tipping an ear.
I think people would argue the point with you.
I would go with that right out of the shower Q-tip of the ear. Far superior pleasure.
Far
sensation
superior.
than scratching.
The Psychology Prize goes to Fritz Strack for discovering that holding a pen in one's mouth makes one smile, which makes one happier. And then for discovering that it does not.
Oh, okay, Fritz. I really like you.
Uh-huh.
So I proved this, and then I went back, and it's not true.
It's not true. Yeah.
That's not ig. That's great science.
It
You would
is
attack
actually.
your own result and be like, "Yeah, looked like I had a good result," and it was that's.
It's what's interesting. So it was 1988 when the pen in the mouth to smile study happened. 2017, the article is called From Data to Truth in Psychological Science, a Personal Perspective. Oh, the journey must have been a thing.
Yeah.
And
I assumed it was over a course of like months. Like we did it once, let's do it again. Oh, got the opposite result. No, this was a lifetime work piece that he's like, I never liked that study. I got to do it again. So I'll get around to it.
Yep. And finally, the Physics Prize goes to the wonderful researchers who discovered how and why wombats create cube-shaped poo.
Oh, didn't we talk about this? Blair already knows the answer.
Yeah, Blair reported on this story.
Yeah.
We covered the story. Blair reported on it. And yeah, we were all very impressed and intrigued by the cube shaping. And obviously the researchers were as well. And now they've won an Ig Nobel for their work. So congratulations to all the researchers. And if you're wondering what I'm going on about these Ig Nobel awards for, it's the fun of science. It's able to look at results that maybe researchers didn't think they were going to get, or questions that you never really thought, hey, can we do science like that? Yes, science is a process, and you can approach so many things with that scientific process. And you can approach things with fun in your heart and a scientific process. Or a serious angle, really looking to change the world. Sometimes you figure out how cube-shaped poo is made. Other times, I don't know.
Yeah. And the other thing to keep in mind is that you never know. Well, sometimes these stories sound a little bit on the frivolous side, and often they are. But by the time they get this award, there are scientific studies that, when done, do not seem that large in import, but have ramifications later down the line.
Absolutely.
That's why every bit of data is important, except maybe a robot that changes baby diapers. Might not. Well, no, I guess if you apply it to adults, that might be handy one day.
Might be handy. Speaking of like looking at data continually, bringing new results, doing the scientific process. 5 systematic reviews were published Monday in the journal Annals of Internal Medicine. The results of these systematic reviews fly in the face of the established nutritional wisdom to reduce the amount of meat in your diet. In fact, the studies find, for the most part, that the health impacts of reducing meat in your diet are slim to none. And they've done multiple studies. These systematic reviews used a method that has been started being developed around the year 2000 by health professionals, is now used by more than 100 organizations worldwide, including the World Health Organization, to determine really what kind of health advice should be handed out. This study design is called the GRADE system, grading of recommendations, assessment, development, and evaluation. And the way that the system works is that it pushes reviewers, according to a Vox article, to base their conclusions only on the most certain evidence available. And according to this tool, in the case of meat consumption and health, that was cohort studies and randomized control trials. So this is human studies. They got rid of all the animal studies because they said sometimes these animal studies, the results don't pan out in people. It doesn't apply. So a result that happened in animals isn't necessarily going to happen in people. If meat causes cancer in a rat, it's not necessarily going to cause cancer in an adult. They got rid of observational trials and used these in a lot of the studies that have been done to date. The way that they're managed is you find somebody who has cancer already, ask them about their diet, and then you find a matched control. So you find somebody who matches on all sorts of other lifestyle factors, demographic factors, and you match the individuals except for that control does not have cancer. And you ask them about their diet, and you go, oh, okay, well, this person didn't eat meat, didn't get cancer. This person ate meat, got cancer. And so you're basing it all on the recollection of the subjects in the studies. And they got rid of all those trials too. They said those studies aren't the best. And they only kept the studies that were randomized controls and were cohort studies in which they followed a group of individuals over many, many years. And so it was more about people continually reporting their nutritional intake and other factors. And then, oh, this person got cancer, and it's recorded in this just study of a large group of people. It's part of a large data set. And it seems like a really well thought out methodology. However, the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Association, multiple organizations are debating the results and saying they've actually already submitted a request to the FTC to have the results of the study basically banned. For the FTC to say this isn't right, the study's not right, because like I said, it's controversial. It says the opposite of what all these organizations have been saying to date.
So there's a whole bunch of details, right, that need to be involved in a study like this, and it doesn't sound like even in the version they narrowed it down to, did they necessarily get the crux of it. So in terms of a cancer meat association, one thing you could talk about is, how is the meat that you're eating prepared? If you're talking about being an avid backyard barbecuer, where you've got charcoals and you cook everything until there's a black crisp layer on the outside of the meat, yeah, it might not be the meat that's potentially causing a stomach cancer, but it could be all this heavy carbon that you're digesting with your food. Also, are you talking about meat that's like in a hamburger that might be rather lean, or are you talking about something that might be a fattier meat when it comes to heart disease? Then you have to ask, what is your microbiome? How well are you digesting this food? Does your body really need this? And if you're a meat eater, what are you talking about? Are you talking about a hamburger a week, or are you talking about sausage in the morning, chicken at lunch, and a steak for dinner every day? So whenever there's human reporting involved, you're going to wind up with a lot of interpretation in terms of what people think the questions, how they interpret the questions, sort of thing. So I get why these organizations are wary of the result, but it's been this road with nutrition where there is not a one size fits all. There are things that one person can eat to excess that the person, their neighbor, if they had that same diet, would kill them rather quickly. People absorb foods different. People. So this is the next story I got lined up here. Stop blaming volcanoes for global warming, scientists say. Which, this was a trope on the climate change denial or the anthropogenic climate change denial side for a long time. That it's earthquake. It's not. It's volcanoes that are causing global warming. They're the ones putting out most of the carbon. Well, Deep Carbon Observatory Program's 500-member Reservoirs and Fluxes team has outlined several key findings in an investigation of the present day back billions of years past from Earth's core up to the atmosphere, and from the size of a single volcano to the mass of all of them across 5 continents. Among the many wide-ranging findings outlined and summarized in the series of papers published in the journal Elements, it says just 0.2% of the Earth's total carbon is above surface in the oceans, on land, and in the atmosphere. The rest is subsurface. That's crust, mantle, core. So, yeah, there's a lot of carbon down there. CO2 outgassed to the atmosphere and oceans today from volcanoes and other magmatically active regions is estimated at 280 to 360 million tons per year, which, if you compare that to the output of carbon emissions from humans, is about 100 times less than what humans have been doing on a yearly. And we have also been increasing over time. So it's 40 to 100 times more output from humans, depending on when you're looking. It's about 100 times now. So this is pretty interesting. There was a massive release comparable to what humans, I guess, have done, or to past mass extinctions. The giant meteor impact 66 million years ago that struck what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula rapidly warmed the planet and coincided with the mass extinction of 75%-ish of plants and animals on the planet, including the dinosaurs. So, yeah, humans and giant meteor impacts. Bad for planet Earth.
Yeah. I mean, I love a lot of this study. It came out of the carbon. What's the group that we've
Deep Carbon
Observatory. Yes, the Deep Carbon Observatory. We've spoken with them a few times, and it's just so amazing that they're able to track, that they've been able to figure out where the carbon is, what the carbon cycle really is on our planet. How much is at the core of our Earth? How much is in the mantle? And how much is in the atmosphere, which is like teeny tiny percentage of all the carbon on the planet. Tiny. But it has such an impact. And our influence is like on the level of previous mass extinctions. Like you said, asteroids, volcanic eruptions that have destroyed life on the planet. Yeah. Yay, people. We're awesome. Go. And yeah, I think the whole concept of understanding how our Earth uses up carbon, how it sucks it up into the crust, into the mantle, how it dives deep, and where it goes and how it gets outgassed and how that flows is, it's so important to our understanding of how we really are impacting our small percentage of what is there.
Yeah, I was actually surprised how little. I mean, that was including the oceans too.
Yeah.
0.2%. So it's yeah. I mean, yeah, big impact in small amounts. You're right. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. It comes down to, I guess, it's what is the percentage, the proportion that is applicable to us and life. We need to pay attention to that and what we're working on. Stop blaming the volcanoes. Oh yeah. Hey,
Huh?
do you want to have a Blair's Animal Corner without Blair?
Yeah, let's do it.
Should we play her music
Yeah.
without her? Okay, here we go. Let's dance.
It's still the.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
With Justin and Kiki. Hey, Kiki, what you got?
Ow, I was going to do that to you and put you on the spot. Okay. I've got some ape minds for you. The planet of the apes. We love to talk about how smart people are. And one of those aspects of intelligence that we come back to is this thing called theory of mind, and is an ability of humans and very few other animals to be able to determine what other animals are thinking based on your own experience, being able to go, I went through that experience. This other animal's going through that experience. I can relate. I think this is what they're thinking right now. This is what they're going through. It's realizing that you can attribute mental states to yourself and others. That others, if you have a mental state, others have a mental state. Right?
Which is handy because if you would wander down to the watering hole in primitive lifey fashion and something came out of the water and ate something on land, it might if you didn't have any form of empathy, you might like, oh, that was interesting. Might as well go down to the watering hole and get a drink. I mean, you need these signals, and you need to be able to put yourself in that position so that you can be better adapted to the environment.
Right. And especially with social animals who have to get along with each other. And you have to figure out, oh, I'd be angry if somebody stole my banana. Somebody stole dude's banana. Okay. He's probably pretty angry, right? So being able to attribute these mental states, emotional states to other conspecifics, others like you, then it does give that benefit. And so there's been this question for a really long time as to whether or not other great apes have theory of mind. And so there's a new study that was just published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS. And it turns out that, hey, based on the results, they do, more or less do. They used chimpanzees, 29 chimpanzees, 14 bonobos, and 4 orangutans to do this experiment. And in the experiment, they showed an actor, which was a person, go and hide something underneath a box. And then the actor went behind a barrier, and then okay, sorry, I got it all mixed up. So anyway, the apes were exposed to these boxes. There was a barrier, and it was either able to see through it, transparent, or it was opaque. And they had to pick one of the two boxes. They would see somebody hide something under a box. They would go behind the barrier, and then they would see somebody mess with the boxes, move the little toy to the other box, and then they'd have to go choose the box. If it was transparent, the apes could see this happening. If it was opaque, they could not see it
I
happening.
had to infer it.
Yes, they had to infer it. And so they would watch other apes have to deal with the situation after having gone through it themselves, with either that transparent barrier where they could see the actor move the little toy from box to box, or with it opaque, where they would know that the ape could not see this happening. And so they were like, oh, and they measured where the apes were staring, which box the apes stared at the most. And they found that the apes were watching the box that the apes behind the barrier was that they knew the apes were going to look there, even though the toy wasn't there anymore, if the apes were behind the opaque barrier. So they're basically doing this eye tracking experiment as a test of how do they know what the other ape is going to do.
Yeah, they're using some prediction skills here.
Yes. And so they found that the apes that had the experience of seeing through the transparent barrier, that they stared at the box where the toy had been much, much longer than apes who had had the opaque barrier and hadn't had the same experience. So there was a difference in their, based on the experience that the apes had had, on what they were predicting the apes that were going through it were going to be doing. Theory of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is present even in the apes, of course. Tardigrades.
Tardigrades.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of tardigrades.
These are everybody who has been listening to the show knows what a tardigrade is. But if you haven't, it's a plump-looking microscopic alien bath toy. Yeah, it's an incredible creature. You need to Google it if you haven't seen one. They're also called water bears, moss piglets. They have some pretty interesting resilience, even extremophiles. They have the ability they've survived in the vacuum of space for some period of time. They can basically dehydrate themselves. There's another word for what they're doing, but they basically can become dehydrated and then come back to life again later. So one of the things that's really interesting about them is they can also survive pretty decent amount of radiation, as well as high radiation levels, very cold temperatures, exposure to deadly chemicals, all sorts of places where life should die. And a number of these conditions, even if you are some sort of an extremophile that has managed to survive in one of these environments, the fact that the tardigrades can survive in many of them is just pretty perplexing. So what previous studies had identified a protein named DSUP, which they called damage suppression protein, which is a protein that is only found in tardigrades this far. So intriguingly, when they tested it in human cells, they found that the protein protected human cells from X-rays, from damage that would be associated. So it's not known exactly how this DSUP protein was performing this. So team at UC San Diego ran some tests, some studies. They discovered that this DSUP protein binds to chromatin, which is a form of DNA within the cells. It's basically kind of binds around and creates a protective overcoat. Shields DNA from hydroxyl radicals, which are produced by X-rays. So the scientists don't really think that there was necessarily a benefit to tardigrades being X-ray resistant, but that this chromatin wrapping of the protein may be protecting it from all sorts of other normally deteriorating scenarios. So this may be one of the secrets of the tardigrades' extremophile existence. And then they're already speculating that you could utilize this perhaps Then in doing things for biotech, in which if you wanted to create a hardier, more resistant strain of say, a bacteria or something, you might be able to protect its DNA if you were putting it through a rough process. But then, the thing I first thought of when you said this is the augmented space human.
Right? That's the first thing I thought too. I'm like, well, we're going to space where we should wrap up that DNA.
Spaceships are only so radiation proof. It's like one of the tougher things for long distance space travel is dealing with all the radiation or living on one of the moons of Mars or on Mars itself. Is this exposure to radiation that you'd be dealing with.
Yeah.
So
The
maybe there it
downside
is.
the downside of that is that if you do get cancer in space, then you can't go through radiation treatment.
Oh,
I mean, you'd have to do something to open up the DSUP so that your DNA could be accessed
mhm.
if you are one of these future space humans. So it comes with a little bit of a downside, but maybe the upside is much more of an upside. You got to do that cost benefit analysis.
Hopefully by the time, that's a good point. Hopefully by the time we are infusing future human astronauts with this DSUP protein ability, we've also made them cancer free.
Right, or if not completely cancer free, then we're not doing this sledgehammer radiation treatment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Fix it,
Better
right?
cancer treatments too.
Better
And also just for economics, even in the future, it's probably best that we have then augmented really super intelligent mice to travel on tinier spaceships who can go out there and do the research.
We've done everything for the mice. It's all about the
We've
mice.
got them so figured out. We already have cancer-free mice strains. We can just go the next step and make them our future astronauts.
Yeah. Fruit flies and mice, the research animals of choice. They are going to go to space, be cancer free. It's gonna be amazing. I hope that we can use clicker training to train them to do things for us. All right, everyone, we have come to the end of the first half of This Week in Science. We'll be back in just a few moments with more This Week in Science. Stay tuned.
Explain things you've heard with more than intuition. A line of reason shows the way to go. New conclusion. The methods of hypothesis.
Thank you for supporting This Week in Science. We do appreciate you being here with us week after week after week, talking about the science, learning about the science. If you really want to keep track of all that science, you know what would be what was I going to say? Fantabulous? Yes, fantastic way to keep track of that is with a 2020 Blair's Animal Corner calendar. And with the 2020 Blair's Animal Corner calendar, you will be able to keep track of episodes of TWIS. Yes, it says on each calendar when TWIS is going to be airing. That's right. It's Wednesdays, but it's just like the little reminders. Sometimes we put in there whether or not we're going to be taking a break and whether it's a holiday for us. So you'll know that ahead of time. There are also special science holidays that are noted throughout the year. So you'll be on top of your science celebration game year round. And the most important aspect is all of the art created for the calendar by Blair. If you go to twis.org, you can click on the wonderful Hypnotoad up in the corner of our webpage to pre-order your 2020 Blair's Animal Corner TWIS calendar now. That's right. Click on that lovely Hypnotoad. This year, Blair has done a stained glass-esque art style, and you can. The exciting thing about that, if you get the newsletter, you probably saw her write up about her methodology and how she came to it this year. So that's another thing at twis.org. You can apply for our newsletter, sign up when the pop-up window comes up, or just let me know. Send me an email, kirsten@thisweekinscience.com. Say, hey, put me on your newsletter list, and I will put you on the newsletter list, and you'll get little emails and stories and things that are adjacent to the show, but things that we're thinking about and doing in our lives that are related to This Week in Science. In other news right now, we also have a special offer. That's right. We have a very special offer right now on Patreon. Patreon is our crowdfunding website. And for a limited time until October 14th, you will be able to get a framed piece of Blair's art if you go to Patreon and donate at the $50 per month level and above. So the $50 per month level, if you go and donate there, you'll become eligible for getting a framed piece of art. So there's 12 pieces of stained glass art that will be available this year, and there are some left over from previous calendars from previous years. Anyone who's already at that $50 a month level, you're already eligible. But if you are at $25 a month, $15 a month, and you want to get in there for a short period of time, get a framed piece of art, sign up at the $50 a month level. If you support us at that level for 3 months, we'll send you a wonderful framed piece of art. Original by Blair, not cut out of, not Memorexed. Did I just say Memorexed?
Memorexed? Xerox? Not a copy.
Not photocopied.
Not a reproduction.
Not a reproduction, not chopped out of the calendar with a pair of scissors. The original art that Blair created for the calendar. You'll get that original art in a frame. And it's just for the next 2 weeks until the 14th. And once that's gone, that's it. So get in there if you want a framed piece of art from Blair. This is exciting to us because it will help us raise funds for some things that we need to do as a group, as a podcast, and we would really appreciate your support. Not only will you get that piece of art, but you will also get that warm, fuzzy feeling, the knowledge that you are supporting an independent science podcast who does not get support from any big advertisers or big names. We stay independent so that we can be as unbiased as possible for you. Thank you for supporting This Week in Science. We really could not do any of this without you.
We can't explain things we've heard with more than intuition. A line of reason shows the way to go. New conclusion. The methods of hypothesis and patience are the only.
And we're back with more This Week in Science.
Yeah, and we are back for that section of the show, that segment of the show that we love to call This Week in What Has Science Done For Me
Lately. Ooh, that's
how's
really
that
tough
cold
work.
helping out there?
Yeah, it doesn't work. Been working for me.
Oh, all right. Here's our letter from this week. Hello, everybody. So, what has science done for me lately? Well, lately being 29 years ago. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. My self-preservation skills are poor at best. I'm attracted to caution tape. Halloween of 1990, my senior year of high school, while out with a friend, my car broke down. While waiting for a ride to come pick us up, I decided to climb a high voltage transmission tower.
Oh, no.
I had always thought, don't touch a wire. What's the worst that can happen? And I found out. I was 55 feet up the tower, 15 feet below the power lines when the power arced off and hit me.
Oh,
My friend,
no.
yeah, my friend Kelly was on the ground and said the sky lit up so bright. It was midnight, by the way, that she couldn't see me. She said I kept screaming, I can't let go, and suddenly darkness, and my body fell to the ground. It gets better. When I hit the ground, I started a brush fire. Yep.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my God.
I was an
Oh,
ember.
no.
Never met one of those before. The base of the tower was surrounded by a 6-foot fence with 3 strands of barbed wire on the top. Remember that disclaimer? I climbed all of that to accomplish this goal. I was motionless at this point, thought to be dead. Within minutes, the emergency crews were showing up and yelling at me to lay still to avoid further injuries. She had to do this because they weren't allowed to cut the lock on the gate until the power company showed up to determine whether or not it was safe to enter. After about 45 minutes, the brush fire had extinguished, and Kelly was losing her mind that no one was helping me. An onlooker walked around to the back of the fence and pulled it up from the ground, at which point Kelly slid underneath and approached me. This apparently changed the situation and gave cause for the cops to cut the lock, and the paramedics entered and retrieved me.
Oh, good job, Kelly.
Good job, Kelly. I was put into a helicopter and off to the hospital. While in the chopper, I died, arriving at the hospital with no signs of life.
I thought this was going to end better. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I know. The ER unit grabbed the defibrillator. Anyone see the irony where this is going? They yeah, see where this is going.
I've had actually enough voltage for what do you think?
Yeah, anyway, they shocked me back to life. I spent the next 7 days in a coma. Both lungs had collapsed and I was on a respirator. After waking from the coma, I was still in a space between, meaning I was responsive but not aware. I came around on November 23rd with no recollection of what had happened. To this day, I have no memory of the event or the 20 minutes or so leading up to it. Everything I'm telling you is simply what has been told to me.
Yeah.
I was 48% second and third degree burned. My left arm was welded to my side. Due to a broken collarbone, the only break from a 55-foot fall, they couldn't start physical therapy until it healed 4 weeks in. That meant my left arm was useless when I awoke. A rep from the power company told me I was hit with roughly 140,000 volts, coal-fired at that. After 10 months of therapy and a few surgeries, I could lift a glass of water to my mouth. Within a year, I had a full recovery and started rock climbing. I went on to get a job as a stunt performer with full use of my arms.
What?
Science. Yeah. Science made all of this possible. Science figured out a way to make me whole and live on to travel the world doing awesome things with amazing people. When someone tells me they don't trust science, I simply take my shirt off and point out that it wasn't a politician or belief that allowed me to tell my story. It was science. Pure science. I love your show. Blair's theme song stays in my head for days after each episode. Keep doing what you're doing. And thanks for letting me share my story. Take care, Josh Hicks.
Josh, that is an incredible story.
You are one lucky person. Oh my goodness.
And I'm going to just say, you are science and Kelly.
And Kelly.
And Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
although, on the other hand, maybe if Kelly had been a little bit more persuasive.
Up front.
You know.
Maybe you shouldn't climb up that 55-foot tall
There's a reason that it's barbed wired and has the caution. That is a fantastic story. And I love the fact that the disregard for caution to some degree, even after. You're like, in the stunt profession, there's going to be at least a little pre-planning for how the things will go. Fantastic. That's my favorite story. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. It is, this is people in the chat room have loved it. They're all saying, "What a story!" It really is, and I mean, it is amazing that you are able to tell it today. Mm-hmm. I would love science to tell me how I can keep my son from doing stunts like that when he's older, but I don't know if that's possible.
Share this story.
Sure, I'll share this story. That's right. I'll tell him this story. Maybe don't ever do that. Okay. Yeah. Oh my God.
This should actually, forget the sign that says caution. They should put little plaques with this story.
This story.
Yeah. Because like, oh, I didn't know that was possible.
That's why.
Okay. Let me see.
Yeah. Josh, thank you so much for enjoying TWIS. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Just amazing. And yeah, thank you, science, for making it possible for you to share. Everybody, if you have a story you would like to share, if you have a note, if you have a poem, if you have, some small tidbit, how science has what science has done for you lately or 29 years ago. Let me know. Send me an email, Kirsten@thisweekinscience.com, or leave a message on our Facebook page. All right, Justin, let's move back into the science. Tell me about bacteria.
Oh, let's see. What is this story? This is, so we've talked about it a bit on the show, how I think the estimate is 2050, which is not that long from now, 30-ish years. There could be 10 million deaths per year due to basic infection, because antibiotic resistance is going to be a real problem amongst microbes that have been able to adjust and evolve to the ways that we've been attacking them. We have new and different ways and approaches coming up. However, this research is a little bit alarming because it is pointing out that bacteria in certain situations can shed their skin. They can actually exist without a cell wall, which is a thing that in most human cells don't have this outer cell wall. And so the way that the body identifies intruders is this weird thing that they have on the outside of their cell, which is this shell. And that's where they attack and destroy bacteria. This is what the drugs that we have developed, this is what our antibiotics do, is they identify pathogens by this outer shell. This study was specific to urinary tracts in elder folks, but in it they found that there were, by filtering, they kind of was sort of an interesting thing. They had this filter that should have filtered out, I believe it's E. coli in this study. This is in Nature Communications. Look specifically at bacterial species associated with recurrent urinary tract infections. It found many different bacterial species, including E. coli, that can survive as what they were calling L form in the human body. That is, having gotten rid of that outer cell wall. So what happens then is it also changes breeding behavior. It changes the shape of bacteria. It changes a lot of the things that the body might normally use to identify. So they are now looking into finding these ways to target L form, and it might be more pervasive, of course, than they found in this one study. This is something that had come up and been noticed some long time ago by researchers, but hasn't really surfaced again in a long time. This discovery is pretty big in finding that there is another way in which bacteria can exist within the human body that we previously were not aware of.
Oh. I'm sure there are probably many ways bacteria exist in our bodies that we're not aware of. We're only aware of ways that we can grow in a petri dish. Or, if we can sequence the gene then and associate it with some kind of phenotype, then we say, oh, that's what that is. But
yes.
There's probably, this is cool.
Yeah, so I guess it was first discovered in 1935 by Emmy Kleinberger Nobel, who named them after the Lister Institute, where she was working at the time, which is why there'd be L form. Really wild. It's such a fundamental aspect and descriptor of bacteria that to know that they can survive without. It changes a lot. It makes a lot of interesting arguments too.
How much bacteria is there that we don't know about?
How much
Making
is there that we don't know
estimates.
about? Yeah. Yeah, and these are also, they're discovering this in bacteria that normally have. So it's not just there's a form of bacteria that doesn't have a cell wall. This is showing bacteria that have cell walls normally can also survive in a mode without them, which is then another sort of evolutionary trait, perhaps, or this then can make arguments about pre-evolutionary traits about, like, if you don't need microbes, if microbes can exist without the cell wall, maybe in the first place, maybe the cell wall is something that comes much later.
Yeah.
It's at both ends of this. It's sort of asking questions. So interesting study, and I can't wait to hear more as research delves into this.
And I'd love to know more about how, like, really is it specifically to evade the immune system of the host? Is it to evade other bacteria? What is it? What are these organisms specifically evading by losing this?
Yeah,
This method of identification, right?
Right, because where does a virus target? It finds some spot on the cell wall, and then it does its work. Right? Yeah. So it could be one of these sort of things that we've seen in other bacteria, where you have sort of stochastic activities where they have sort of random different survival traits within this single population, where some will turn themselves into a seed and harden the shell, and some will become elongated, or some will try to multiply really fast within the same population, trying different strategies. So whatever's attacking them may not be able to be successful against all of these strategies. This might just be one more of these strategies that we hadn't really been keenly aware of.
You won't get us all. Hey, kid, go into stealth mode.
Yeah. That's not life. It's life finds a way, but I like it better. Like, life, you won't find us all. It's also
you won't find us all.
You won't get all of us. Yeah.
We will evade you. We will hide from you. That's cool. Speaking of other detection of other things that we haven't really seen before, researchers last December discovered an asteroid in the asteroid belt. It is called 6478 Gault. It was just an asteroid. It had been discovered decades ago, but in December of last year, astronomers were looking at it, and they're just doing a regular survey, and they're like, "What is going on? That asteroid is active. It's moving." Yes, active, moving. And in fact, it has two plumes coming off of it like a comet.
Oh.
And it's changing color. Its surface is changing from reddish to bluish.
So there's a chemical reaction taking place on this asteroid that is propelling it and changing its color. Is this what's happening?
So my first question was, which isn't really addressed, is how did this asteroid that was observed first in 1988 go from just being a normal asteroid, a normal space rock, doing just rocky things in space? How did it go from being inactive to active? What happened? We don't know that. The second question is what this paper that's just out is talking about is their initial observations of the asteroid make them think that the changing color that's occurring is because this asteroid is actually spinning, and it's spinning as it's moving through space. And that spinning and movement is causing the reddish dust on the surface of the asteroid to blow off. And that dust that's coming off is revealing the blue layers underneath, the iron underneath that hasn't oxidized. And so it's going from this reddish dusty surface to a cleaner, bluer surface. And the dust is what's coming off and creating this plume and creating something of a comet tail, but it's a weird active asteroid tail.
Huh.
So yeah, it's not a comet, it's a rock with tails, which is weird in itself. But the thing that the astronomers looking at this are excited to talk about is the idea that the asteroid belt, we kind of think of it as this place where just a bunch of rubble is floating, right? It's just sitting there, not doing anything. But this is evidence that there's a lot more activity going on within the asteroid belt. Things are moving around, shifting and changing all the time. And these movements are the kinds of things that do shift other objects. If you have a big enough object moving, its gravitational pull will potentially move something else nearby. And these objects can get moving, bump into each other, maybe even not be knocked out of the asteroid belt.
Yeah, it's one giant system of butterfly effects, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So they're going to be looking at it a little bit more when it next comes into the sky. They're hoping that they'll be able to measure the asteroid's brightness over time to be able to see the dust tail and determine exactly what is going on with this active asteroid, the Gault asteroid. And then another thing, did you know that there's a second cometary interstellar interloper in our solar system?
Yes.
So we had Oumuamua a while ago, but now we have 2I Borisov. 2I Borisov does not have as an exciting name as Oumuamua, but it also is a comet, and the astronomers observing 2I Borisov published in Astrophysical Journal Letters that they have seen the ultraviolet part of the spectrum, flux of the light that's coming through the cometary material, that they can tell that there is gas coming off of the comet that is cyanogen. And you go, oh, cyanogen, is that special? What is that? Well, it turns
Carbon
out
and nitrogen?
it's cyanide. Yeah, cyanogen. I believe. Let me look that up. Cyanogen. So that's not cyanogen mods. Hey, thanks, autocorrect. Yes, so it is a pseudo halogen formed of carbon and nitrogen. Yes, a colorless, toxic gas with a pungent odor. Thank you for the warning, toxic gas. The two cyano groups are bonded together at their carbon atoms and then triple bonded to the nitrogen. So anyway, yes, cyanogen is the gas that comes out. But you may ask, is this special gas from another solar system far away? Because this is an object that apparently, because of its trajectory, is not of our solar system. It's from somewhere else. And so by looking at it, we go, is this different? Is it the same? Well, it turns out that cyanogen gas is released from comets in our own solar system. So it suggests that wherever this is from is similar in makeup to our own system.
A homogeneous universe.
Yeah, which kind of exciting.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's really awesome.
It is good to know. Yeah, now we know. The more we know. And I learned what cyanogen gas is.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah.
You're right, though. It is a friendly poisonous gas when it tells you that not to breathe. Yeah.
I'm stinky. Don't breathe me.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for the warning.
Yes. What else do you have, Justin?
Oh, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. Oh, yeah. This is seagrass meadows. That are, I think these ones are off the coast of Florida. At least it's University of Florida researchers who are looking at them, and they've made a pretty interesting discovery. So seagrass is very much threatened by coastal development and by pollution and by climate change. And the question are these grass meadows under the water really that important? And no, from the past, that there's a lot of life forms that use them for shelter and the like. But they don't know. What they didn't really know is how permanent they are. Is it possible that they can kind of come and go like a meadow will, like it can be filled with seagrass and then it can disappear? It could show up somewhere else. Will it just move further out to sea or take up new spaces? Basically, some of these have been at the most observed for a decade or two. In this study, though, they were able to use microfossils and the like to sort of date some seagrass beds and found that they could be centuries and millennia old, hundreds and thousands of years old. They also found some pretty interesting stuff. There was a much richer variety of animals in and around the seagrass meadows. There was protection for the seafloor. There was carbon storing. It improved water quality and clarity in the surrounding area. It had this ability to slow wave energy, which then there would be less erosion on the shores. Mm-hmm. They could actually do, and then because of all of these sort of things, created a very attractive place for fish, birds, marine mammals, invertebrates, algae. So, giving a really important role for seagrass in the ecosystems of coastal regions. And there was a 2009 study that they point out that mapped seagrass meadows that have as having decreased by 29% since 1879. So,
is that because I guess there'd be multiple reasons: sea level rise, but then what else is it? Like development, or what's happening?
It's really all of the above. So you can think of boats, especially once we got into combustion engine boats that were probably leaking oil into the water, and nobody really cared for the first 70 years of doing this. And very populated areas, of course, because these are coastal areas that humans like to go out and fish and play in and the like. But we're talking about a anchor ecosystem, which is a term I made up, but Blair probably has the right version for what I'm trying to say. But they house and feed and nurture a lot of the feeder creatures, snails.
So it's kind of there. It's kind of like coral reefs. So you're looking at the seagrass is supporting. It's an entire ecosystem, and you lose the seagrass, you lose all of the animals and the diversity that goes along with it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That is very interesting. I mean, we look at corals are the huge topic that people are talking about because they're so beautiful. They have all these species of corals, and you look at them and you're like, oh, they're amazing. And the fish that are in them are these beautiful, colorful fish. And it's a vibrant ecosystem that evokes emotion in people when you see it.
And seagrass is just grass under the sea. Grass. You can't see all of that diversity taking place. Yeah.
Yep,
and it's one of these things too. If this, if we were to start a Save the Seagrass campaign, we would be mocked for wanting to save grass that is under the ocean that nobody sees.
Mm-hmm. Seagrass? I don't see grass. What?
Yeah, and but this is what happens very quickly when people don't understand that it's not. Who can't see the seagrass for the trees? Is that the seagrass meadow for the blades?
Mixing some metaphors, but that's all right.
Messing up metaphors.
Still plants. It's vegetation. I got you.
But this is one of those things that might sound to some ears as a nonsensical thing to try to preserve. But if you can explain at some point that actually that's what's sustaining your fisheries off the coast of the waters that you inhabit and enjoy, that ends up on your plate or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
This is why the seals that you like to go out and look at are visiting your little part of the world because there's an ecology that has invited them in.
Yeah. So many, there are many connections to be made. I am shocked at how this story has never really come up before, and we have lost basically 30% of seagrass to date. That's it's like, hello, that's a significant amount.
Yeah, so this is
It's almost a third. Here we go.
yeah, it's corals. We're gonna need to put seagrass right up there with the corals when we're talking
Yeah.
about preserving our coastal areas.
One thing that does not get preserved, little mussels, apparently. When you're a baby, an embryo, we talk a lot about, when you go through these developmental stages, right? We maybe have gills at one point when the gill slits when you're an embryo, and then that embryonic stage passes, and the skin and everything fuses together, and those gills go away, and your
Running
lungs
through
become
evolutionary history.
Yes,
Pre-birth.
it's called
so amazing.
the terminology is ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny.
Ooh,
Those are the
that
big
sounds
words.
sexier. Yeah.
Yeah. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, which means the stages of development repeat all those evolutionary phases
That's so amazing.
that we've passed through. And researchers this last week have reported on a new finding of things that are in our embryonic stages between the weeks of about 7 to 13 of gestation that go away, that aren't kept. And they looked at the hands and the feet of little babies, and they did these MRIs scans to look at the muscles, and they found extra muscles, little tiny muscles. They're called dorsometacarpals, and they are these little tiny muscles that go back to our reptilian ancestors.
What?
They go back about 250 million years.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are the normal muscles that go on to create the movements of the thumb, the hand, and actually there are these extra muscles. The thumb has some extra muscles that researchers think allows the dexterity of the thumb that we have compared to some other animals that lose the fine muscles that are there. Those little fine muscles actually at the embryonic stage exist for more fingers. And there are these two little muscles that disappear during development. They fuse with the other muscles in the hand. Sometimes they disappear completely. Sometimes they fuse with other muscles to create the final anatomical structure of the developed hand.
And it's a good thing that they do, otherwise we'd be all thumbs.
Maybe all thumbs, right? Much more. But it's a really interesting finding because this is something that it's called an atavistic trait. This is a trait that exists from an ancestral state, but then goes away during development, that it disappears. And so we know that we have the gills, we have the tail, we've got these little muscles in our hands now that we can count on. And during development, also brain, like neurons, we have tons of neurons that get pruned away. There's all sorts of things that change during development. I just think it's a fascinating, development is a fascinating adventure. It's a fascinating story because it takes us into the future with the individuals, but also into our past.
Yeah, that's really cool. Amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, new ways of looking at things. You find new things. So they found this cool thing, new muscles that we didn't know were there that are part of our development. Do you have more stories? I have one more.
Oh, go for it.
All right. So this one I think is a really fun story. We talk about prosthetics and the direction of brain control devices, these BCIs, these brain computer interfaces, and also just prosthetics that have some amount of dexterity and flexibility. Now some researchers out of EPFL have developed a new model. It brings together neuroengineering with robotics to create a robotic hand that can be controlled by neural impulses from the stump of an amputation or from the brain, depending on where they would come from. But the idea is that the muscles that remain after amputation can be trained and controlled to make certain movements, and then they use robotic control to take over the movement. So in terms of how the human body works, if you're going to trip and fall, or if you're going to drop a cup, that your body needs to react in a very quick amount of time. And very often your brain is not even involved in tripping and falling. It is a spinal reflex that will help right you. Many times the reflexes that go to the spine and back or are part of what maintain a movement. And so instead of
your brain in that moment is still active, but it's going, oh no.
Exactly, something's gonna fall. What am I gonna do? Exactly. And so what they've done is they've brought together, it's called shared control for prosthetics, so that individuals, it's not at the point where they can test it on not actually put it into use in prosthetics, but they're testing it on people currently. They are training people to use the muscles that remain after amputation to allow them to control a robotic hand to come in contact with an object, say like a water bottle. And then the robotic arm takes over the rest of the way. There are sensors on the robotic arm that respond then to the shape and texture of whatever object it encounters. And so then the robotic arm takes over the actual holding. So the person will think the control of grasping or touching, and then the robotic arm will take it the rest of the way. So it's a combination of individual control and robotic control, which they're hoping will move things forward in a really positive manner for future prosthetics. It's kind of exciting. Yeah. Robots. You like my robot arm? Haha, I tell it what to do and then it does my bidding. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think it's super cool. Super cool. Super cool robots. Hey, have we come to the end of a show? Did we do it?
I think so.
Did we do this?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we've done it. I missed Blair, but I'm glad that we got her in the beginning. I hope she makes it home safely, doesn't get eaten by a polar bear. That would be no good. But in the meantime, I want to thank you all for joining us on TWIS once again, for joining us for the last hour or two to celebrate science, to talk about science. And I hope that you take some of these stories with you for the next week. Ponder them. Take them to cocktail parties. I don't know. What are you doing this weekend? Tell some people about these stories. And I also want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you to Fada for helping with show notes, show descriptions, and our chat room. Thank you to...
Oh no, it's that thing where what happens every once in a while. Almost on the hour to Kiki. Oh, we need a Kiki. We need to bring you back. She's reading. She's saying, thank you to this person, thank you to that person, thank you to some more people. She doesn't know. She's so busy reading, she hasn't looked up to see the fact that I am talking the whole time. Nobody can hear her. Well, we do want to thank all of the minions for all of their support. And what I should do is I should be reading the thing that I think she's reading. On next week's show, we'll be broadcasting live again at 8 p.m. Pacific time on twis.org live, where you can watch and join our chat room. But don't worry if you can't make it. You can find our past episodes at youtube.com/thisweekinscience or twis.org. Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. And if you did enjoy the show, remember to tell your friends about TWIS. For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website, www.twis.org, where you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts and other listeners. And pre-order the 2020 TWIS Blair's Animal Corner calendar. You can also contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twisminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twis.org. Just put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line. Otherwise, your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know. We will be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news. And if you learned anything from the show, remember,
It's all in your head.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 Got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. So how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
Gah. Ugh. Gah. Blah. I thought I had the glitch fixed. I obviously didn't. That's what updates do to you. Oh, we're in the after show, everybody. We're in the after show. I can't wait for Justin to come back. I hope Blair will post videos of her trip to the Arctic. I may want to re-record something at the end, but I don't know what was missing. Hey, Noodles, thanks. I'm wearing my warm, it's all my stripes. I've got so many stripes. My scarf and my stripes. I don't know when I went silent. Did I at least finish my Patreon thanks? Do I have to do that over again? I will do it over again. Oh man, everything after Fada. Okay. Yeah, I should do that again. Didn't start it. Thank you. I did the whole thing. So I believe that I have figured out what the glitch is and I need to reset it. I think what happened is that Windows did an update and in doing the update, it reset. Or maybe it resets when the computer restarts or something. I don't know, but it's a clock thing. It's something, it's a task. It's muted after I thanked Fada. Okay. But I'll start with Fada. I'll just do the thanks over again and then I can mush it all together again and that'll be fine. So let's just get that taken care of. So it's done. Yes? All right. Back to the top of my list. And we've come to the end of another show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of This Week in Science. We hope you enjoyed all the show, all the science as much as we did. Thank you also to Fada, who helps with show notes and show descriptions, social media, and with our chat room. Thanks to Gord McLeod for helping with the chat room. Identity4, thank you for recording the show, sometimes twice. And thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Paul Disney, Andrew Swanson, Craig Landon, Andy Groh, Ed Stupalik, Philip Shane, Ken Hayes, Harrison Prather, Charlene Henry, Joshua Fury, Steve DeBell, Alex Wilson, Tony Steele, Richard Porter, Mark Massaros, Jack, Matthew Litwin, Jason Roberts, Bill K, Bob Calder, Time Jumper 319, Eric Knapp, Richard Brian Condren, Dave Neighbor, Donald Mundis, Sarah Forfar, Dan K, Matt Bass, Darwin Handon, Patrick Pecoraro, Ben Bignell, Jean Tellier, John Gridney, Corinne Benton, Adam LaJoy, Sarah Chavis, Rodney, Tiffany Boyd, John Bertram, Mountain Sloth, Seth O'Gradney, Stephen Albaran, John Ratnaswamy, Dave Friedel, Daryl Myshak, Paul Ronovich, Sue Doster, Dave Wilkinson, Noodles, Kevin Reardon, Christoph Zucknarek, Ashish Pants, Ulysses Adkins, Artyom, Rick Ramus, Paul, John McKee, Jason Olds, Brian Carrington, Christopher Dreyer, Lisa Slazewski, Jim Drapeau, Greg Riley, Sean Lamb, Steve Leisman, Kurt Larson, Rudy Garcia, Marjorie, Gary S., Robert, Greg Briggs, Brendan Minish, Christopher Rappin, Flying Out, Aaron Luthen, Matt Sutter, Mark Hessenflow, Kevin Parachan, Byron Lee, and E.O. Thank you for your support on Patreon. And if you are interested in supporting us, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience or just the Patreon link at our website. We are running a limited time special offer until October 14th. So act now. On next week's show, once again, we'll be broadcasting live online at 8 p.m. Pacific time on twist.org/live, where you can watch and join our chat room. But don't worry, if you can't make it, you can always find past episodes at our YouTube channel or twist.org.
Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science, anywhere good podcasts are found. If you did enjoy the show, remember to tell your friends about TWIS.
For more information on anything that you have heard here today, show notes are going to be available on our website, twist.org, where you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts and other listeners, and where you can pre-order our 2020 TWIS Blair's Animal Corner calendar.
You can also contact us directly. Email Justin at twisminion@gmail.com, Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line. Otherwise, what will happen, Kiki?
Oh, your email's going to get spam filtered into oblivion.
That's what's going to happen. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
And we'll be back here next week. We hope you'll join us once again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head. Okay, that's a wrap, folks. We can all go now and have the chowder, just like they did on the Titanic. Shoot, I love that story. Hey, I read the story. Did you read the story? It's so
I have
crazy.
no idea what you talk about.
Okay, I know. I talk about random things that come into my mind occasionally. So James Cameron directed the Titanic. And there's a story going around that apparently has been fact-checked and is true, that on the last day of wrapping one of their shoots in Mexico, everybody had the caterer's chowder. There was some kind of chowder. And then people started acting weird, and like people started like laughing and they couldn't stop laughing, or like just they were going crazy running around, and everybody ended up getting taken to the hospital emergency room, and it's like the whole cast and crew all taken. They took over this hospital's emergency room, and they were insane. James Cameron got stabbed in the face with a pen by somebody, and there was a conga line of individuals who had put on hospital dressing gowns in this emergency room. It turns out everybody had been dosed with PCP.
What?
Yeah.
What the heck? That's a heck of a rap party.
That's a heck of a rap party.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. Anyway, they don't know to this day. They don't know who did it, why they did it, what happened, but everybody was higher than kites after eating that dosed chowder, apparently. Yeah, crazy story, but I like it. I think it's a funny story. And James Cameron actually was like, yeah. I guess he still thinks, he's like, maybe my wife did it.
No.
She was like one of the only people who didn't get dosed because she like conveniently left before dinner.
That's it. But that's it. Wow. That's a really, I mean, giving anybody any narcotic that they don't know they're getting is just an awful, vile, horrible.
Terrible. It's terrible.
PCP is like a very dangerous. Like that's even somebody who's a drug addict is like, yeah, I'll do all of the shooting and the snorting, but I won't touch that because that's insane.
Won't touch that one. Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh
Yep. Oh, Justin's not feeling well. He has a cold, and he's jet lagged. We have to talk with Justin when he comes back here from muting himself about where he is and what he's doing. We talked to Blair about her adventure, Justin.
Yeah,
I see the sun coming up. Where are you?
The sun is on the other side of this building.
I know, but
maybe next time I'll set up with the sunrise.
I've been watching the sky getting brighter and brighter behind you over the last hour or so.
Yeah.
Where are you? What's going
I am
on?
in Denmark currently, and it is. I am so jet lagged that I've been sleeping like twice a day. So my day started this one of my days.
One of my days. How many days is a day?
It's so bizarre. But I think if I can stay awake now, I think I got it because I woke up an hour and a half before the show, which would have been about 3:30 in the morning. So I can stay up late enough. I should fall asleep and then maybe be on a circadian
Kind of normal. Start getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's definitely a different experience of doing the show right after I wake up versus right before going to bed. So it's kind of it's interesting. Having done the show now, I have the whole day with the show behind me. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I
you're like,
wonder if
already-
I'll remember
I
less
already
of the
did
show.
a show today.
I wonder if I'll remember less of the show because I'll have all these other events that are competing with my brain. Whereas normally the show is locked in because I go right to sleep, and the last thing I was doing was the show, and it just sort of locks in all the memories. I forget the show ever existed.
I don't think you're going to forget the show ever existed. I don't think that's going to happen. No. Unless you get up, you do the show, and then you go back to bed and take a nap.
Which might happen. I'm fighting it. I'm fighting it. But part of me is like, yeah, just take a little nap. Fine. Nothing bad will happen. Yeah, then I'll be jet lagged forever.
You'll be sleeping all day long.
Yeah, I have to figure out a way to stay awake through this day, and then I'll have conquered my jet lag.
That's cool. So you are there for an indefinite period at this point in time? Or do you have 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, we'll call it 6. It could be shorter, could be longer. But yeah, one-way ticket here, and then it'll be figured out.
My dad has a story about coming home from, I think it was from Norway, could have been from Denmark. I don't remember what country it was that he stowed away on a ship, according to his story. Yeah, he went after high school, kind of in between high school and college, went to Norway and worked in a tobacco factory in Norway. Was paid in tobacco and kept putting the tobacco, paid in money and tobacco, but mostly tobacco. And he kept kind of putting the tobacco away. And then he had a VW Bug that he drove around Europe and went to Eastern Europe because there was the Eastern Bloc during those days. He went to Eastern Europe, and in crossing through Berlin, going to the east side, he had some issues. But he basically he had some issues because there were some beer bottles that clanged in the back of his VW bus, and like the guards with their guns were like attacking them, but there was nothing there except beer bottles. But they went into Eastern Germany and were able to pay for everything, get a 5-star hotel, like these amazing dinners, because they paid for it all with tobacco.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they were living high on the hog. He's like, basically, 18, 19 years old, paying for stuff with tobacco in Eastern Europe. And then he came back and he didn't have any money. And so he couldn't come home, but he needed to come home. And so he he stowed away on an ocean liner and apparently jumped off the ship somewhere in New York Harbor and swam to shore. This is the story he tells. I have no way to confirm or deny any of the details. It seems doable for an 18 or 19-year-old back in the, long time ago.
Yeah.
Yes. So I hope you don't have to stow away on an ocean liner and jump into the harbor, I think is what I'm trying to say.
No. I did. So part of this too is I flew Norwegian out of Oakland, California. I think they're moving base out of San Francisco.
Okay.
But the flight was, I think, less than we spent going to New York, Denver, or Santa Fe. It was like a few $100.
What? That's amazing.
Yeah, Norwegian has the most insanely inexpensive intercontinental flights, I guess.
Welcome to Norway.
Yeah.
Say
It was
welcome
very
to
cool.
Norway.
And it was a direct flight. At
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It was the cheapest flight I've ever flown.
That's
going
awesome.
out. And it was direct, no stops. So it was a really nice flight.
And it was about the same length as your trip to Santa Fe.
No, it was shorter. It was on the way back from Santa Fe. Took, I think, longer than this flight. Yeah, but yeah, I was pretty impressed with that. So it's going to make it easy to do a little bit of hopping. I haven't done a whole lot of
Cool.
exploring.
You just got there, yeah.
Denmark this time around. I've been mostly recovering from jet lag and trying to figure out how to. It's a different country, which is interesting.
It is really.
Yeah.
Surprise! Are you gonna be eating a lot of kassa?
Kassa? I don't even know what kassa is.
I think it's cheese. Isn't that cheese?
Oest.
Oost. Oh,
Oest.
right. Oost.
Ja. You
have
have spise.
Oosterhuvel. You
I'm
have
already.
Oosterhuvel. Oosterhuvel.
I have it spise
Cheese slicer.
leverpostej, spejepølse, små det ryebrød. Ja, det er også godt. Jeg elsker det danske food. Danske mænd? Ja.
Danske mænd.
Ja, danske mænd.
Danske mænd. That's fun. I hope you have so much fun. I hope you do some exploring over the next week and can tell us more. But I'm glad that you're safe in
Casey
Denmark.
Knox asked if I flew over Blair. Yeah, very likely. Yeah, the trajectory.
Waved.
I think she might have been just a little bit north of me when I flew over Canada. But it's a flight from, the western seaboard of the United States. It just basically goes north. North and a little bit east. Eventually flew over Greenland before landing.
What time did you leave?
8 o'clock at night.
On Saturday?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. You would have flown right over her then. Yep. Do you speak Norwegian, Ed is asking?
I can speak a little bit of Danish.
Smørbrød.
Yeah, I'm not in Norway. The flight was on Norwegian Air, but the country I'm visiting is Denmark.
Dave Shorty, what do they call pastries that the rest of the world would call a Danish?
So this is so they used to just call them pastries, but in retaliation, they've become accustomed to now calling them Americans.
No. Oh, I'd like a jelly-filled American, please. That's funny. I think that's fantastic. I want to go traveling. That'll be fun. I have travels planned for next year. Next summer, I have some travels I'm excited about.
Nice.
Je vais aller en France. Oui, et boire du vin en Bordeaux. Et I don't know how to say explore. Explorer. Explorer du cave des Néandertals. But I'm going to be in the Bordeaux region, kind of in the southern area of France, not that far from the border with Spain. And I'm going to go explore all of the caves where they're finding all of the cave paintings that you talk about all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they don't let many people in the caves, but with
No, there are some that they do. They're
They do?
tourists.
Okay.
There are tourist caves. I don't know, but maybe I can find some scientists to take me on a science expedition.
So you have to look it up, but there is, and I don't know if I think it's one of the French caves where they did the museum reconstruction.
Ooh.
Where they basically recreated in the museum what you would see in terms of the art.
If
and
you were
outlay.
in the caves.
If you were in the caves. So the idea being
Nice.
they can move 10,000 people a day through this exhibit that's showing them what's in the cave without doing the damage to the cave by having all these humans wandering about.
Yeah. You don't want people actually touching everything.
Yeah. But this is,
don't touch the art.
This is an American abroad telling you all the amazing things you might not have expected when you are in a foreign country. Being close to Europe, turns out the flights to other European countries are much cheaper when you're already in Europe.
Yeah.
So I've actually looked at a couple of day trips where I can get I think it's a round trip ticket to France for like $80.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should just maybe do some country hopping via plane.
Well, I mean, you've already got your passport. You can go. I mean, I don't know how there's also if you go to Paris, you can then take the bullet train, the fast train to through the Channel and go to London, because they have that direct. You can go France to London if you wanted to. Yeah, that's like a couple of days.
So check out the back as the outdoor gets brighter, I'm becoming silhouetted.
You are.
I'm just these floating reflection on some glasses now.
You are Dark Star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's time. Wait, how do we do it without Blair here?
I don't know.
I think you have to start.
What? Okay, I have to start? Okay.
Yeah.
You just have to talk to yourself. Say goodnight, Justin.
Okay. Say goodnight, Justin. Good night, Justin. Good night, Kiki.
Good night, everyone. I am so glad that you joined us again for another week. We hope that we see you again next week. And Justin, get some sleep.
No, actually, I should have said good morning, Justin.
Good morning, Justin.
My day is just about to start. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Good morning, Justin. Have a wonderful day. I can't wait to hear more stories. Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Bye. I'm working on it, clicking all the buttons.